No one in that room thought dinner would turn into a trial. But the moment the man stood up, lifted his glass, and stopped right in front of Sophia Bennett, everything changed. He did not talk about the engagement. He did not talk about family. He looked straight at her, his voice low, steady, emotionless, and said, "Who are you to this family?" The question landed like a blade. No one moved, no one spoke. Even the faint clink of silverware disappeared. The air froze as if the entire room was holding its breath, waiting for an answer it was afraid to hear. Sophia did not answer right away, but in that moment her entire life rushed backward so fast it hurt. 34 years, 34 years of being kept out of the frame. Just a minute ago, her mother had been smiling, that perfect smile polished through hundreds of dinners, thousands of conversations. She had just been talking about Ethan, her son, the one about to get married, the one placed at the center of this carefully crafted universe. Ethan was smiling too, easy, confident, like always, and beside him Olivia, his fiancée, looked at him with bright eyes, seeing the family she believed was perfect. And then the question came. Sophia's mother let out a thin, high laugh, like a thread about to snap. She quickly stepped in, her voice soft but rushed. "That's Sophia, Ethan's older sister. She works an office job in the city. Nothing special." But the man did not look at her. He kept his eyes on Sophia. His gaze did not waver. It was not polite. It was not curious. It was the look of someone who had seen the truth before and was waiting for it to step forward on its own. Sophia understood that immediately because she had seen that look before. In a courtroom months ago, when she sat in the back row taking notes on every testimony, every detail of a case no one wanted exposed. Back then he did not know who she was, but he had read what she wrote, and now he was standing in her family's home listening to a completely different version of her, a version edited down, made smaller, hidden. Sophia did not turn to look at her mother. She did not need to. She knew exactly what her mother was thinking. "Stay quiet, do not ruin this, just one night." She had heard those words before, many times. The most recent was just the night before, when her phone lit up in the dark and her mother's voice came through sharp and cold. "You can come to dinner tomorrow, but do not mention your job. Just say you work in administration. Do you understand?" It was not an invitation. It was a condition. Sophia had not argued. She had said okay, not because she agreed, but because she had learned over time how to make herself smaller to keep the peace. But now, standing in front of this man, with the entire room watching her like a verdict waiting to be delivered, Sophia realized something. This was no longer dinner. This was the moment every lie built over years began to crack. Across the table, Olivia tilted her head slightly, her expression shifting from curiosity to confusion. She could feel it, the disconnect between what was being said and what did not quite add up. Ethan's hand tightened, his smile stiffened. He looked at Sophia not with support but with a silent plea. "Do not." Her father sat at the head of the table quiet, like a familiar shadow. He did not look at anyone. He did not intervene, just like always. And her mother was waiting for Sophia to say the line that had already been written for her. But this time, something was different. Sophia could feel her heartbeat, not faster, not panicked, just stronger, clearer. She was no longer the little girl standing in front of the fireplace, dragging a chair just to move her photo to the center, only to come back the next day and find it pushed aside like she had never been there. She was no longer someone trying to prove she deserved to be seen. She had become someone who made the truth impossible to ignore. And now, in this room, under the gaze of a man who did not accept easy answers, Sophia understood there was only one way this could end. Not by staying silent, but by speaking the truth. Sophia Bennett was not born into a family without love. She was born into a family that knew how to love, but chose to love with conditions. She understood that from a very young age, not through words, but through details so small that no outsider would ever notice. In the living room of their house in Portland, there was a wooden shelf above the fireplace. On it sat 6 framed photos. 5 of them were Ethan, her younger brother, at different stages of his life, wearing a baseball uniform, smiling at Christmas, holding up a small trophy after a game he had not even won himself. The sixth photo was Sophia. A stiff school picture, harsh lighting, an awkward smile, two front teeth slightly too big for her face. But the important part was not the photo itself. It was where it was placed. It was not in the center. Not beside the others. It was pushed to the side, half hidden behind a small plant and a ceramic angel. To see Sophia in that picture, you had to tilt your head. You had to look for her. The first time Sophia noticed this, she was 7 years old. She dragged a chair over, climbed up, carefully took her photo out from behind the plant, and placed it in the center, right between two of Ethan's pictures. She stood there for a long time, looking up, her heart beating fast with a simple, innocent hope. Maybe this time her mother would see. Maybe this time her mother would leave it there. But when she came home from school the next day, the chair was back in place, and her photo was back behind the plant, as if nothing had ever changed. That was the first time Sophia experienced what she would later call the shadow test. A test with no instructions, no score, just one question. What did she have to do to be seen? After that, she stopped moving the photo. She started moving herself. When Ethan was chosen for the team, Sophia told herself that if she studied hard enough, if she brought home perfect grades, maybe this time her mother would be proud of her. She stayed up late, worked carefully, brought home the highest scores. But that night, her mother called a neighbor, not to talk about Sophia, but to say that Ethan had almost been put into the game. Almost. From that moment, Sophia understood that in the story her mother was telling the world, she was not the main character, not even a supporting one. She was a detail that could be removed without anyone noticing. The years passed, and nothing really changed. It only became more subtle. When Sophia earned a full scholarship to a prestigious university, she called home, her voice trembling, hoping for a different reaction. Her mother was silent for a few seconds. Then she said, "Ethan just got invited to a training session." "Did you hear about that?" There was no congratulations. No question about how Sophia felt. Just a quiet shift, moving the spotlight back where it belonged. Sophia kept going. She studied. She wrote. She built her life piece by piece, as if every achievement was another attempt at the shadow test. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe this time her mother would talk about her. But every time she came home, every holiday, every family dinner, the story stayed the same. What Ethan did, what Ethan achieved, who Ethan was becoming. And Sophia, if anyone asked, her mother would smile softly, tilt her head slightly, as if explaining something difficult. She likes to do her own thing. She is very private. Private. A simple word, but enough to turn everything Sophia had worked for into something vague, something not worth mentioning. There was one time, when Sophia was about 16, she wrote an essay that was selected for a student publication. She brought the paper home, placed it on the kitchen table, hoping her mother would see it. Her mother did see it. She flipped through a few pages, skimmed it, then set it down. "It is good writing," she said, "but do not let it pull you away from reality." Sophia did not ask what reality meant. She had known the answer for a long time. Reality was the story her mother wanted to tell. And in that story, Sophia always stood in the shadows. A shadow kept not to be loved, but to make someone else shine brighter. But what no one in that family realized was that shadows can grow. And one day, when the light hits at the right angle, that shadow becomes impossible to ignore. If someone only looked at Sophia Bennett's life from the outside, they would think she was the one who chose to walk away from her family. A woman living alone in the city, rarely coming home, never appearing in the stories her mother told about their lives. But the truth was the opposite. Sophia had never left. She had simply been left behind. While her family carefully built a perfect version of themselves for the world to see, Sophia lived in a completely different reality, one without bright lights, without polite praise, without stories polished to look better than they were. She worked in a small room that stayed lit deep into the night, her desk covered in papers, documents, and hurried notes, a recorder always resting at the corner, ready for interviews most people did not want to give. Sophia was not the kind of storyteller people found easy to listen to. She was the one who dug into what others tried to hide. She was the one who forced uncomfortable truths into the open. But in her family, that was not called courage, it was called trouble. The first time one of Sophia's stories gained real attention, she did not tell her family right away. Not because she did not want to share, but because she had learned that her joy rarely landed the way she hoped. Still, one late evening, when her article appeared on the front page of a major publication, she could not hold it in. She called home, her voice slightly trembling, her eyes bright in the dim light of her room. She said she had just finished a major investigation, that people were reading it, talking about it. There was a brief silence on the other end. Then her mother spoke. "That's good. By the way, did you hear Ethan got invited to a networking event with some important people?" No questions, no curiosity, not even a second given to what Sophia had just said. Just a gentle but firm shift, moving the focus somewhere else. Sophia was not surprised. She was used to that. What she was not used to was what came next. A week later, when she came home for the weekend, a neighbor approached her with a sympathetic look. She said her mother had mentioned Sophia was struggling in the city, that she was sorry to hear that. Sophia stood still. Struggling with what? The woman hesitated, mentioning work, stress, things like that. Sophia did not respond. She simply nodded and walked inside. In the kitchen, her mother was cutting vegetables, her expression calm, as if nothing was out of place. Sophia stood in the doorway, watching her for a long moment. "Am I struggling?" Her mother did not turn around. "People ask. I just say something simple. Not everyone understands what you do. It's easier that way." Easier. Another word for bending the truth. Another word for shrinking someone into something more acceptable. Sophia did not argue. Not because she agreed, but because she understood this was no longer a misunderstanding. It was a choice. Her mother was not just failing to see her, she was actively rewriting her. And over time, that story became more complete. On social media, her mother's account looked like a perfect family magazine. Photos of Ethan appeared regularly, stories of his success told with pride, carefully framed moments that fit the image she wanted to present. Sophia had tried to step into that space once, just once. She liked a post about Ethan and left a simple comment, saying it was good to see him happy. A quiet sentence, no attention-seeking, no attempt to take anything away. But when she checked back a few hours later, the comment was gone. As if it had never been there. As if she had never been there. Sophia sat on the couch, her phone glowing in her hand, staring at the empty space where her words had been. There was no notification, no explanation, just a silent action, but a clear one. In the world her mother had created, there was no place for her. And the most painful part was not being erased. It was realizing that the person doing the erasing was the one who had brought her into the world. Sophia set her phone down. She did not cry. Not because it did not hurt, but because she had passed the point where tears could fix anything. She stood up, walked to her desk, and opened her laptop. On the screen was an unfinished draft. Another story. Another truth. Another system trying to hide something. Sophia placed her hands on the keyboard. If she could not exist in her family's story, then she would keep telling stories no one could erase. And this time, she would not make herself smaller to fit anyone else's version, not even her own family. The call came at 1:30 in the morning, not the kind of call people get when everything is still normal. Sophia opened her eyes in the dark, her heart already racing before she even saw the name on the screen. Her father. He rarely called, and almost never at that hour. She sat up, pulling the blanket aside, her voice still rough from sleep, asking if something had happened and if everyone was all right. There was a brief pause on the other end, not because of a bad connection, but because he was choosing his words carefully, as if he was afraid of saying the wrong thing. He said everyone was fine, that nothing had happened. Then after a short pause, he added that this weekend, Ethan would be bringing Olivia's family over for dinner, and her mother said that if she wanted, She could come home. If she wanted. Not that they wanted her there. Not that they needed her there. Just if she wanted. Sophia leaned back against the headboard, her eyes fixed on the dark ceiling. She said she would come, simple, without asking anything more, without needing an explanation. But before she could hang up, another voice cut in, sharper, clearer, her mother. She did not wait for a response. She took the phone and spoke immediately, telling Sophia she could come. But there was something she needed to understand. There was no greeting, no warmth, only a condition. Olivia's father was an important man. This was a big night for Ethan, and she did not want any trouble. Sophia said nothing. She had already heard enough to know what was coming next. Her mother continued, telling her not to mention her job, just say she worked in an office, no details, no explanations. A silence stretched between them, not because Sophia did not understand, but because she understood too well. She asked quietly if her mother was telling her to lie. Her mother responded immediately, saying it was not lying, just simplifying things, that not everyone understood what she did, and honestly, not everyone wanted to hear it. Not everyone wanted to hear it. The words fell softly, familiar, almost harmless. But Sophia knew exactly what they meant. Her work was not something that made the family look better, so it had to be reduced. Her mother added that this was Ethan's night, and Sophia should not make it about herself, asking if she understood. In the background, her father said nothing, did not intervene, just like always. Sophia closed her eyes for a moment. Old images surfaced without effort. The photo behind the plant. The conversations that were cut short. The stories that had been rewritten. And now, another request. Make yourself smaller. Just one more time. She said yes. One word. Quick. Clean. Without emotion. On the other end, her father let out a quiet breath, as if something had just been avoided. He said they would see her this weekend, and the call ended. The room fell silent again. Sophia placed the phone down, but she did not lie back immediately. She sat there in the dark, eyes open, staring at nothing. She had said yes. But not because she agreed. Because she had learned, over time, to choose the path with the least conflict. At least, that had been true before. The next morning, sunlight filled the room, bringing with it something different. Not the exhaustion of a sleepless night, but something clearer. A decision. Sophia stood in front of her closet longer than usual, her hand moving across familiar clothes before stopping at a dark blazer. She had worn it at an award ceremony, a moment no one in her family had been there to see. She took it out, not to impress anyone, but to remind herself who she was. The drive back to Portland was quiet. No music, no podcasts, just the steady sound of the road and thoughts repeating in her mind. Long stretches of highway that seemed endless, like the distance between who she really was and the version her family wanted to see. When she stopped at a gas station, she caught her reflection in the window. Not the little girl behind the plant, not the woman erased from photographs, but someone who had built her own identity from the ground up. And this time, she was not sure she could hide it. Not even for one evening. Not even to keep the peace. Because deep down, Sophia was beginning to understand something. There are truths that, once you have lived with them long enough, can no longer be turned back into lies, not even for a few hours. Dinner began like a performance that had already been rehearsed. Every seat had meaning, every line had a purpose. Sophia sat at the corner of the table, not because she chose that spot, but because it had been chosen for her long before she arrived, far from the center, far from the spotlight, close enough to be present, but never close enough to be part of the story. Her mother moved around the table like a director, pouring wine, adjusting plates, smiling at the right moments, saying exactly what needed to be said. Every introduction about Ethan flowed smoothly, effortlessly, as if it had been practiced dozens of times. She spoke with pride, saying he was working on major projects and had the potential to go even further. Ethan smiled, slightly stiff, but he did not correct her. Across the table, Olivia listened carefully, her eyes moving between Ethan and his mother, trying to piece everything together into something that made sense. Her father, the judge, said very little. He observed. He missed nothing. Every time Sophia tried to speak, even just to make a small comment about the food, her mother found a way to cut her off. "Could you grab more bread for me? Could you check if there is enough water in the kitchen?" And just like that, the conversation would shift back to Ethan. There was always a way to redirect. Always a reason to make Sophia's voice disappear mid-sentence. Sophia did not react immediately. She had lived through this too many times. But this time, something was different. Not everyone at the table accepted it as normal. Olivia began to notice the rhythm was off. She tilted her head when Sophia was interrupted for the third time, her gaze lingering a little longer, as if trying to understand something that was not being said. And the judge began to ask questions. They were not big questions, not direct, just small ones that sounded almost casual. He asked how long she had been living in Portland. Sophia had barely opened her mouth when her mother answered for her, saying she had just moved back recently and worked in an administrative role, something stable. Sophia fell silent, not because she did not have an answer, but because she realized every answer she gave would be edited before it reached anyone else. Then everything changed, not with a loud sound, but with a small, clear one that cut through the room. The soft tap of a knife against a glass. Everything stopped. The judge stood up. He adjusted his jacket slowly, deliberately, a habit of someone used to standing before a room, used to controlling the atmosphere. He said he would like to say a few words. His voice was not loud, but it was enough to silence everyone. Sophia's mother smiled brightly. This was the moment she had been waiting for, a moment of recognition, a seal of approval from the other family. He began with familiar things. Family, trust, choosing the people you bring into your future. He looked at Olivia, his expression softening, telling her she had always had the ability to see people clearly. Then he turned to Ethan, saying that a relationship was not built only on first impressions, but on honesty over time. Ethan nodded, his smile returning, though it did not quite reach his eyes. Under the table, Sophia's mother reached for her husband's hand and squeezed it lightly. Everything seemed to be going exactly as planned, until he started walking. Slowly, along the length of the table, his eyes moved from one person to the next, pausing just long enough to read their reactions. And then he stopped. Right in front of Sophia. No warning, no preparation. Just a silence that stretched long enough for every eye in the room to follow his. He looked at her, not like a stranger, but like someone confirming something he already knew. He said he had to admit he was surprised to see her there. Sophia's mother laughed immediately, her voice slightly higher than before, saying her daughter was very private and did not like attention. But he did not look at her. His eyes never left Sophia. He asked again, "Who are you to this family?" This time, the question was clearer. There was no way around it. Sophia could feel every gaze in the room pressing toward her. Ethan stiffened. Olivia held her breath. Her father lowered his head, as if he did not want to witness what was about to happen. And her mother waited, waiting for Sophia to say the right line, waiting for her to continue the role she had always played. Just one sentence. "I work in an office." Just that. Everything would continue. No one would be hurt. No one would have to face the truth. But Sophia did not speak right away. In that moment, everything inside her became strangely clear. The years of being pushed aside, the stories rewritten, the times she had made herself smaller just to keep the peace. All of it led here. Not so she could stay silent, but so she could choose. And this time, she did not choose to shrink. Sophia lifted her head, looked straight into his eyes, and spoke. "I am their daughter, and I am an investigative journalist." The answer was not loud, not dramatic, but it landed on the table like an explosion. No one moved right away. The air thickened. Sophia's mother was the first to react. She let out a laugh, but this time it did not flow smoothly. She said Sophia just liked writing, that she actually worked in administration, that she tended to exaggerate a little. But this time, her words no longer controlled the story. The judge turned to look at her. There was no anger, no harshness, just a cold, clear gaze that cut through every layer of illusion. He said slowly that he had read what her daughter wrote. The room fell completely silent. He turned back to Sophia and spoke about the investigations into hidden public contracts, about the data her team had exposed that had been cited in multiple legal cases he had handled. He paused, then said she was not someone who worked in administration. A deeper silence settled over the room. Olivia turned fully toward Sophia, her eyes widening with recognition. She asked, her voice low but steady, if she was that Sophia Bennett, the one whose podcast they had studied in her law class. Sophia did not answer immediately. She only gave a small nod. Ethan went still. He stared down at the table as if the wood in front of him could swallow him whole. Sophia's mother opened her mouth, but no words came out right away. For the first time in years, she did not have a ready story to fix the situation. She finally said she just did not want to make a big deal out of it, that Sophia did not like attention. Olivia shook her head. She said it was not that Sophia did not like attention, it was that no one wanted to see her. The words cut straight through the room. Ethan looked up, his voice tight, saying it did not have to become this, that it was just a dinner. The judge spoke again, his voice still calm, but heavier now. He said it was not just a dinner. He turned to Ethan and said this was the moment they understood who they were sitting with, and whether those people were honest. Ethan swallowed but did not answer, because this time there was no simple answer left. Sophia's mother tried to regain control, saying they only wanted the family to look a little better, that everyone did that. Olivia shook her head again and said that anyone could polish a story, but no one erased another person to do it. She looked directly at Ethan and asked if he had known. Ethan stayed silent. Just a second, but it was enough. Olivia closed her eyes briefly, as if confirming something within herself. When she opened them, her expression had changed. She said she could not continue like this. She took off the ring. Slowly, deliberately, she placed it on the table. The sound was small, but it echoed for a long time. Sophia's mother broke down, her voice cracking as she said Olivia could not do that she was destroying Ethan's future. Sophia spoke, cutting in for the first time. Her voice was not loud, but it was clear. She said she was not destroying anything. She stood up, slowly, without rushing. She said she was simply done pretending. Her gaze moved around the table, to her father who remained silent, to Ethan who looked lost between two worlds, and finally to her mother. She said she had spent her whole life trying to be seen, but she would no longer do it by making herself smaller. Her mother shook her head, tears falling, saying Sophia did not understand, that she only wanted things to be better. Sophia answered that her mother did not want things to be better, she wanted them to look better. A silence followed. No one argued, because this time the truth sat in the middle of the table, impossible to push aside like a hidden photograph. Sophia reached for her coat. She did not wait for anyone to call her back. She did not wait for an apology. She did not wait for anything anymore. She walked out of the house she had grown up in, out of the story that had been written for her. Outside, the air was cold, quiet. But for the first time in many years, Sophia did not feel left behind. She was leaving, in her own way. And behind her, an old story was beginning to collapse, not because she destroyed it, but because she stopped holding it together. If this story felt familiar, you are not alone. Many people grow up being told to shrink, to stay quiet, to fit into someone else's version of who they should be. But your truth matters. Your voice matters. And the moment you choose to stand in it, everything changes. So tell me in the comments, have you ever been made to feel invisible in your own life? If this story spoke to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this.